and more fiber artists are turning to current events, making quilts about issues that they really feel strongly about, whether that's anger, frustration, or simply wanting to educate people about an issue. And I'm here with Luana Rubin, who has collected some of these quilts and curated exhibits having to do with a cause. So welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I just wanted to come and share some quilts that have a message, because often, art and images can share an idea and an emotion and an issue better than words can.
That's
right?
true. Yeah, and sometimes the beauty of the piece pulls people in and helps them understand it and engage with an issue in a way that's unique.
Right. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 experiences of a quilt where you get closer, you're drawn in by the beauty at the first, and then you're drawn in, you say, oh, there's a message here.
Right, there's always layers of meaning.
Exactly.
Well, this is just a gorgeous quilt, and I love the beautiful hand embroidery here. It's just spectacular. And down here on the flowers, the quilting, the way it pulls you in and out and makes you feel that sense of movement in the sky.
Right.
It's just fabulous. So there's a story behind this, though, right?
Yes. So Gail Garber lives in Albuquerque, and she has a story of, this is actually telling the story of how her raptor rescue was started.
Oh.
So she rescued a hawk, a young hawk, and that hawk was the inspiration for starting this raptor rescue, rescuing injured hawks and eagles and owls and kestrel and so on. And so she finally lost that hawk, who was like a member of the family, but she wanted to do a tribute. And this is her tribute to that member of the family.
Beautiful.
And of course, it's an environmental statement too. It's about saving the hawks and
Preserving the land that they live on and
exactly.
everything else. Right.
And just talking about the techniques here, what I love about this is so many different techniques. So amazing machine quilting. She has a machine quilting partner who she sends it out to. But yeah, she also comes in and does all of this handwork, which is
beautiful.
very special. It's like little fireworks.
Yeah. Well, let me pull this aside and we can talk about the next one.
Good. Well, I can talk about this because this is my quilt. This is going to an exhibit at the Clinton Presidential Library. I was very honored to be invited. Actually, I worked on this through the whole pandemic because I got interrupted several times. But the story about this is when Hillary Clinton went to the UN Conference on Women in Beijing in 1995, she gave a famous speech in her famous pink suit, and she made this statement, women's rights are human rights.
Right.
And of course, we kind of take that for granted now, but it seems to be a generational
it's going to be relevant forever,
I
right?
think so, yes.
Yeah.
So I used a lot of different techniques here, but you'll see I used a free motion zigzag on the main statement in English.
In pink, too.
Right, in pink, of course, to match her jacket. But also I used acrylic pens to write it in several different languages,
and you've even got it
Japanese and Chinese and Greek and several others.
Which is what the translators were doing in the UN when she spoke, right?
Exactly.
So they were all hearing it in their own languages.
Right.
And it's beautiful how you abstracted all of the shapes in here. But you definitely get the sense that there are lots of women listening to her.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Ready for the next one?
We'll go on to the next one.
Oh, and this fabric of all the women on the back is terrific.
That's something that I designed many years ago.
Very pertinent.
Yes. Okay, so this is by the artist Betty Busby, who also is down in Albuquerque. And you're familiar with this quilt, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
This is in an exhibition that I curated years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that, this is, I don't know if I would call this a beautiful quilt. I would call it a powerful quilt, and it expresses how a lot of young people, a lot of young women in particular, are feeling often these days. And it's a portrait, but it's also a very graphic quilt.
Yeah, and I was trying to tell exactly, but it looks like some of this is a non-woven material that she's painted. It's a great way to use type on a quilt. It's such a beautiful, powerful way to use type.
Yeah. And of course, she has stitching going through, giving texture to the hair and the face. So
right, and I love the strong vertical composition too in this piece, because it forces you to really read the words.
Right. Well, and it's very powerful visually too. It's kind of in your face, which I think was her point.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Well, another issue or topic that we are all aware of lately is gun violence, and I know you and I share a concern about that.
Right, and when you first look at this quilt, it's beautiful, you know, beautiful bright colors. But she actually made this after the shooting at the Pulse nightclub
Exactly.
in Orlando.
Yes.
So it's very much about LGBTQ and about gun violence at the
Yes.
same time.
So the pride theme, the rainbow colors and so on are in here, and of course it was in Florida, so we have the seahorses. But this is one of my quilts that I've collected, and I just felt really strongly that I wanted to support the artist.
That's so nice. It's nice as a curator to purchase. So now, who's the artist on this?
Susanna Hotchkiss.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And this was traveling for 3 years before it came home to me.
And this is some of the most beautiful machine applique
yeah.
work. It is perfect. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a real skill, I think.
It's really striking,
Yeah.
and she has a great sense of color. Well, if I can say this, this is by one of my favorite artists.
So this is my piece. I made this after the mass killing at Parkland, Florida, at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I incorporated the roses to symbolize the students and teachers who were killed. This is the Holy Spirit, or the symbol of peace, perched on the top of the weapon. And I also really wanted to tell a story and educate people about how many lives had been lost over a certain time. So the little tick marks here, and I've got the date and the place of the shootings. And I think I only went through 2018. I left some empty space at the bottom to indicate the deaths that were yet to come, unless we can figure out a solution to this horrible problem.
And I just want to say that this is another piece that you experience it in so many layers. You know, when I first saw this piece a few years ago in an exhibit, this stands out very strong, but then you get close and you see the beautiful shading in the flowers and the details in the gun, and the two, they're clashing with each other, and yet visually they just hit you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I picked this. This is a commercially available stencil, but it reminded me of the gears of a clock. So that's a symbol of the time that is passing, or the time that we're losing, and the time that is lost to those who die. So I tried to pull some of those elements in.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job.
Yeah. Thank
Love
you.
it.
So before we go, let's talk a little bit about the piece behind us here.
Yes, yes. So this is by a Russian artist named Galla Grotto. She had to flee Russia many years ago and go to Ukraine for her artistic freedom. Then she moved to France. I met her in Canada. I purchased this piece, and I met her the next day, and we spoke about some of the things that we both care about, and her eyes filled up with tears, and she said, "Well, you're the perfect person to have this piece." She said, "This is about Mother Earth's sadness, about what is happening to the environment, what's happening to the earth." And recently, she had to help evacuate her daughter from Ukraine.
Oh, boy.
So another issue. So many layers of things for us to think about in our art. And you also have a piece.
Yeah, so I have my little sunflower here that I made as a fundraiser to feed people in Ukraine during the war. But I think it really helps you heal as an artist. If you make a piece, it kind of helps you process your emotions.
Yes.
And just have something to do during a difficult time when you're really upset. And artists can be very sensitive people, you know. They feel things very deeply, and they need to figure out a way to process them and to move through them.
Right. And I think that that idea that we can touch someone visually in a way that maybe we can't do with words. I think a lot of us are unhappy or frustrated with what's happening in the world today, and we want to do something. What can we do?
Right.
As artists, we can reach out and touch somebody's heart and mind, and thousands of people, tens, even hundreds of thousands of people, if we send it out on a series of exhibits. So, I just want to encourage artists to think about that. For myself, I have made a commitment that every other piece I make for the rest of my life is going to be an activist quilt.
Right. Well, you know, they talk about art as therapy, and they use art in therapy to help people who are troubled or sad, depressed, and it's because it is so powerful, and making it is the key.
Absolutely.
And so I think, you know, you can use whatever medium you have available to you to help yourself and help other people to understand an issue and to deal with it.
Right, and the making is a meditation and a processing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for sharing some of these quilts with us.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. We'll be back in just a minute.
Equilter.com, quilt fabrics and sewing supplies, international distributor of fabrics online.